Stop football. Run. Good evening, bienvenue à notre réunion de conseil pour le 5 mars. Welcome to our council and committee of the whole meeting for the 5th of March. I'll open this evening and inviting Councillor from Ward 3, Dan, for our land acknowledgement.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. As we meet today, I would like to take a moment to recognize the importance of the land on which we are gathered. La municipalité du Nipissing-Ouest reconnaît avec respect que nous sommes réunis pour les terres ancestrales des peuples Anishinaabe sur les territoires traditionnels des Premières Nations du Nipissing, Temagami et d'Okies, désignés par le traité Robinson-Huron. Nous honorons leur lien historique avec le territoire et nous valorisons leur contribution considérable au façonnement et au renforcement de nos communautés. We do this to reaffirm our commitment and responsibility towards reconciliation and improving our understanding of local Indigenous people and their cultures. Thank you, Madam.
Thank you very much, Councillor Connie. And number 2, any declarations of pecuniary interest? Councillor Rivard.
Thank you, through you, Madam Mayor. I'd just like to declare regarding item 5.2.1, the short-term rental accommodation bylaw, I believe there may be a financial benefit to my employer, some of the aspects, so I'd just like to declare a conflict for that item.
Thank you. I'll just note that Councillor Rivard has filed the appropriate paperwork with the clerk, and that will show up on our conflicts registry. Yes, thank you. Okay, and on to number 3. We do have an addendum for this evening, which you received this afternoon by email, and printed copies on your desk.
It is moved by Councillor Tessier and seconded by Councillor Rastoul. It resolved that the addendum for the meeting of council held on March the 5th, 2024 be adopted as presented.
Questions or comments on the addendum? All in favor? Carried. And next, the agenda, please.
It's moved by Councillor Cochrane and seconded by Councillor Tessier. Be it resolved that the agenda for the council meeting held on March the 5th, 2024 be adopted as presented.
Okay. Questions, comments? All in favor? Carried. Okay, with that, we do not have any delegations or petitions for this evening. We'll move into our committee of the whole, starting with general government, 5.1.1 municipal tax rates and ratios. And we do have a memo prepared by Ms. Craddock in your package. Mr. Barbo?
I'll let Ms. Craddock.
Okay, Ms. Craddock.
Thank you. So this is going to look fairly familiar to last year. It's a discussion that we have every year regarding, before we set our tax rates, how the ratios break down between the various classes of taxation. You know, on the first page, you can see sort of what our rates, or sorry, our ratios are this year. Last year, we did a decrease to the multi-res. And so it had been 2 and it's dropped down to 1.96. We made that change last year. The province sort of sets what they like as sort of the range of fairness is where they want people to sort of be moving, and then the range of flexibility so that our top line is the top point of those ones, which means that if we make any changes to those ratios, once we go down, we can't go back up, so that our new rate becomes the top end as far as the range of flexibility. So again, the province's position is that they think that assessment should be making the difference. So how properties are assessed should be making the difference, not the ratios. Of course, every municipality has got their own view and their own sort of financial circumstances that sort of dictate where we go with ratios. And the province set it up, obviously, that we're allowed to continue to do this because obviously making any of those changes in a short time wouldn't be tenable. As we talked last year, where we sit right now, and I gave you some scenarios with commercial and multi-res because they're the ones that we've sort of have mostly looked at, and we actually made a big change to the large industrial last year as well. But where we sit in relation on the commercial and the multi-res in relation to our neighbors is about in line still. Sudbury and North Bay have multi-res ratios that are just under 2. Some of the smaller communities are, like French River and Elliott Lake are a little bit lower, and the same with commercial. We're in around the same ballpark as we're actually a little bit lower than North Bay and Sudbury, but a lot of that does depend on what individual communities what their mix of assets are. We are still overwhelmingly a residential assessment community, which is why when you look at the second page of the memo, if we're starting to look at, if you wanted to make changes to the ratio, that you can make a change to a ratio, have a fairly significant savings to commercial or multi-res without it having a lot of impact necessary to the residential taxpayer. So the assessment scenarios I've given you have been based on $100,000 of assessment, so that we're not looking at medians, we're not looking at that kind. We're looking at $100,000 of assessment. So if we look at reducing commercial by 1%, on every $100,000 of commercial assessment, they would save nearly $20. On every $100,000 of residential assessment, it's only going to increase their tax levy by $1.10. And so that's how the scenario there is. And so I've given sort of, like I said, we talked about, the 2 commercial and multi-res are the ones that I usually give you scenarios on. I give you the scenario sort of on a 1% or 2% decrease, but it really is, I can run scenarios on whatever council would like to look at. If you would like to look at anything different or larger or any different combination of the ratios there. And again, if you're sort of satisfied with where things are, you made that big drop last year to sort of acknowledge the multi-res, then that's fine too. We can just sort of, you can just sort of acknowledge that you'd like to maintain it as a status quo ratios, and we'll move on from there. I'll turn it back to you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. If council would indulge me, I'd just like to open with a couple of questions of my own. Can you explain again the reasoning, how it came into effect where we have the new multi-res as opposed to the multi-res? I know we went over it last year, but I still find it a little confusing. And the second part of that question would be, is there a time limit at which a new multi-res is no longer considered new? Like, is it a 5-year rebate or reduction in taxes to encourage development, or once it's placed at that new multi-res rate, that is its rate in perpetuity?
No, it's actually second. So it was in, I believe, 2017, the province created this new class. So the province created this class of units. At that time, they forced everyone to come down to the multi-res rate being 2. So that you had to stay at least 2, and then the province created this new multi-res tax class, and so it's for anything that was in construction or started construction. I think it's May 2017. So everything past that point will go into the new multi-res. Anything new will go into the new multi-res. It's going to stay in there forever. Yes.
So anything built from here on in will be taxed at the same rate as a single residential. Correct. And we don't have any control over that number. We have no ability to change that new multi-res number. Correct. That's provincially mandated. Yeah. Okay. And so the result is that property owners who have multi-residential units that are older than 2017 are paying twice, almost twice the amount that a new build would pay.
Yeah.
Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Sorry, just from a policy perspective, I have a little bit of an issue with that. And mostly from an affordability standpoint. So when we look at the fact that we have housing issues within the community, and we have housing issues specifically for people who can not afford new construction rental units, the landlord, basically landlords who are maintaining units that will more likely fall into the affordability categories for people are actually being penalized by policy that discourages them from that. So they don't, if they upgrade the unit, they don't get to go into it would be one thing if somebody who owned a building that was built in 1960 and put $100,000 of work into it to bring it up to spec would then qualify for this, but that's not the case. Just from a policy perspective, it's very difficult to kind of understand why.
I understand your point, Your Worship, and it's not invalid at all. I just want to point out, though, that the ratio by the tax rate is then multiplied by the assessment. And so new builds are, even though their tax rate is lower, their assessment is quite a bit higher, as we know, for new builds. Older multi-res, their assessment is quite a bit lower. So that is a factor, that it isn't apples to apples when you're looking at a build in 2020 versus a build in 1980. Just as a factor.
Yeah. But a build in 2015 as opposed to a build in 2017, then
there's no difference. You're right.
Difference. So it's just a concern I have over whether or not we're doing everything we can to encourage landlords who do have units that were built before this 2017 to keep them within our rental market. That we're not penalized. So I'll open the floor to other questions or comments on tax rates. Councillor Restul?
Through you, Madam Mayor, just a question that I'm asking just to provide background, because through DSAB, we're looking at different initiatives to increase communities' stock of affordable housing. And one of the initiatives that they're looking at is taking existing single dwellings and renovating to make them multi-res. So, and this is new to me, I'm just asking the question. Let's say we have a building that was 2010 and it's a single residential building and we renovate it to make it multi-res. Does it then go into the multi-res, or does it go into the new multi-res because it wasn't a multi-res before?
It goes into the new multi-res.
Okay.
Is multi-res threshold 07?
Yes.
So if you're taking a single residence, they would have to be converting that to 7 units before it gets into the multi-res class, right?
Okay. So if it's only 2 or 3, then it's
Yeah,
still
they're making a
6.
duplex out of it. That doesn't qualify.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
So I'm sorry, and so all the duplexes are being built, they come up under a regular residential,
Correct.
not a multi-res, it's a 7-unit threshold?
Yes.
You're not gonna have the answer to my next question, probably. We'll see.
Okay.
How many, either in the new multi-res or multi-res units do we have within the municipality that are above the 7-unit threshold?
So I don't know actually how many units are.
Not units, but properties that have over 7.
So we have 27 properties that are in the multi-res category and 3 in the new multi-res. Now, some of the ones that are in the multi-res are actually, I think we've got 3 different properties that we have agreements that are 3-party between ourselves, the owner, and DC, because they were brought in almost 20 years ago under incentives to create multi-res housing. So We have, I believe it's 3 properties that we actually have an agreement that we write down their taxes from the multi-res rate to the residential rate now as part of an agreement to incentivize at the time getting the geared income housing in place.
So that would be 24 units left that are paying that, or 24 properties that are paying that larger multi-res rate. Okay, thank you. Other questions or comments? Okay. I mean, I don't know what to do with that. I'd like to see that rate go down a little bit more, but I don't know if there's council appetite on that. We did it by 2 last year.
Correct.
Sorry, Councillor Cushing.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I know like with the impact phased in assessment, it's phased, the increase are phased out over 4 years. Is there any way that we can kind of strategize or look at the numbers to see if we, let's say, reduce gradually over the next couple of years, like bigger chunks for the, like the existing multi-res? If we have 24, locales or 24 buildings in the area that we can try to assist as much as possible to put it more affordable so that we can, I guess give the rebate or give a more affordable rent to their renters. I think, if we can look at that, it'd be interesting to see. It's kind of like a reverse phase-in assessment. So we kind of lower, 0.20, 1 year, the other year. So we get down to that 1.1. Is that something that,
If I may, Madam Mayor, in theory, in a usual cycle, yes, but because MPAC hasn't got back onto their phased-in assessment since COVID yet, I don't have phased-in assessments right now for them. I expect it should shortly because I expect we'll get back on it, and that is a thought that if the assessment is growing, and as we can reduce the ratio so that the tax coming from the pool is the same. Is that what you're?
Yeah, or like even looking maybe at the numbers to see like if we reduce it, let's say like 0.20 this year, 0.20 next year, just to kind of have like a projection of if we do bring it down to 1. I'm thinking it won't penalize the one that are already existing, because I do know that there's some in the area, there are some in Honor actually too that are paying the multi-res rate, but the newer building are paying the new, So if we can kind of see if that's possible, I don't know if that's even doable, like reducing it so big, like every couple of years for the next, couple of years, if that's something.
Is parity possible, and would parity be recommended?
It really is a policy. It really is a policy discussion, So we don't have a lot of multi-res in our municipality. Again, comparatively speaking, if you look at the difference you can make sort of on bringing that down, the change in multi-res. Like I said, you can have a significant impact on the multi-res without a lot of impact on your residential. But it really is, it is a policy on whether it's recommended or not recommended. Certainly your statements on, the leveling the playing field between new builds and older builds is a reasonable assumption, but it really is at council's discretion what you'd like to do.
Just quick math, if you're looking at 1.96 versus the 1, right? And you want to reduce it down that much, you're looking at per 100,000, $50 per 100,000, I think, or is it 100 per 100,000?
Oh yeah, I wouldn't
So
say
if you ever tried to do that,
do it in one shot,
you would be giving the residential class one heck of a kick.
Yeah.
So if you,
No, I don't think that's the intent here, but if we can, like in my opinion, if we can whittle it down. If you look on, it's page 10 of 115 of your agenda packages on the bottom of the page there. So it has the reduced multi-res by 1%, and for a 1% decrease, it amounts to a 40-cent increase per $100,000 of assessment to residential. So I would like to propose that we look at doing what we did last year and doing another 2% down on the multi-res, just knowing that when we do start getting new assessments, maybe we can look at it as a larger policy discussion. I think it's worth trying to encourage and help those that are keeping rental units in our community. So I would look to see whether council would support that recommendation. We're in committee, so it would just be informal. So who would be in favor of going down? Oh, Mr. Pellerin?
Just to be clear, so those two classes are only for buildings with 7
Yes.
apartments and
Yes.
more,
Yes.
and new buildings. So, I don't know, I think obviously the new buildings, they're gonna ask a higher premium for their rent. I don't think they're gonna lower their rent because they're gonna get the lower tax. I don't know.
It wouldn't impact the new builds. The new builds are set at the same as residential. This would only impact multi-residential buildings that were constructed before 2017. Anything built after 2017 is under the new multi-res, which is the same as the residential.
Okay.
So this would only have impact on older buildings. Other questions? Okay. Would there be support from council to lower multi-res at this point by 2 points, or an increase to 80 cents per 100,000 on the residential class? Show of hands, please. None? Oh, sorry. Was I too quick?
I'm trying to figure this out.
Okay. Councilor Resto overnight. No, that's okay.
I'm just looking at the numbers, and please educate me. When we start at the top of the memo, it talks about property class and residential, new multi-res, and we have multi-res at 1.96. But if we go down further, I see it at 2 and I see it at 1.98.
It just copied from the wrong, the tax rate and the totals are correct. The 1.96, it's just copied from the wrong column when I was moving things into my, from my spreadsheet into.
So we're currently at 1.96?
Yes, we're currently at 1.96, yes.
So this would, my proposal would bring it down to 1.94.
Ish.
Ish.
Because of,
Yeah, okay.
yes.
Yeah, I'll let you do the specific math. Councillor Tessier?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. On page 11, the top, it says reduce multi-res by 2%. Is that the recommendation you're making?
Yes.
Which means that for residential, it'll be 81 cents.
That's
So, okay. Seems, okay. And they would reduce theirs by $45. Okay. I can see it.
And through you, Madam Mayor. So the change numbers we have on the far right, those are correct?
Yes.
Because I'm just looking again, reducing multi-res by 2% keeps it at 1.96. So that column hadn't been
Yes.
adjusted, but the numbers that we're looking at for the change
There are, yes.
are accurate.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Councillor Rivard?
Thank you. Through you, Madam Mayor, kind of piece together what I would say here, but my opinion would just be to remain status quo. What Mr. Barbo mentioned about the assessment really does strike with me a little bit, because it is true those new ones, but there's only 3. Those would be valued much higher. So then with their lower percentage, it would just stay at that. The older ones, I do get the assessment would be rising pretty quickly within these past few years. So they would be paying a little bit, quite a bit more than they used to. But at the same time, to put this on the back of solely residential as well, I'm not too sure if I like that idea either. Then we're kind of fixing one problem, but adding to another problem in a way. And I think the multi-residential isn't something that's crazy, that's too crazy in our area, like when I consider how many we have. So I'd just rather not put that burden. If we keep doing this every year, yeah, if we do it all at once, it's heavy, but if we do it every year, it's going to be just as heavy. down the line, residential homes are gonna be paying the same thing. So then you're still looking at younger generations who wanna move here. The tax ratio will be higher for them, or for the elderly population as well, their tax ratio is also increasing. And just to add on to what Councillor Pellerin said about the, I'm not sure if the rent will go down. I'm almost positive the rent won't go down, even if we lower these tax ratios. I understand the idea that the hope would be that it would, but I feel like a lot of people in any business or any investment that see this as kind of a padding a pocket a little bit. Well, maybe we could help our residential class by just remaining status quo.
Appreciate that. Thank you, Councillor Burke. Okay, I know we asked some more questions since then. I saw Councillor Gagne nodding his head too. I'll ask again, who would be in favor of a reduction in the multi-res? Okay. Seeing none, who would like to remain status quo is the recommendation as shown in the recommendation from staff. That has it. Is this on the agenda to be passed later this meeting or for next meeting? It'll come back next meeting. Any other questions before we close the discussion on the rates and ratios on any other property classes? Okay, thank you very much. I appreciate your time on that. Okay, next item on the agenda for this evening is the transparency policy update. Again, the memo's been prepared in your package. This came out of our discussion last meeting or 2 meetings ago. 2 meetings ago. 2 meetings ago. Okay, Mr. Barble?
I'll let the author speak to it.
Okay. And Ms. Braddock, please.
Again, I don't have much more to say than what's in the memo. So we did have the discussion about, removing that line so that our policy matched what we were actually doing. So I suggested, in addition to removing that line, that we rename the interim reports to council, the ad hoc reports to council as required, because what interim reports are, and the interim financial reports and all the financial reporting is now covered under the 2 policies. So I've named the 2 policies in the document. Then council had asked, what can we do just to get reports that we want, or if there's things that we need, or there's more information, and what mechanism is there. So I just was sort of highlighting that council already has mechanisms in place. So whether it's an agenda request, they can, council can direct staff by resolution. Councilors can speak to the mayor, who speaks to the CAO about specific issues. So there are already mechanisms for councils to get additional information, or very specific information, or if they're looking for analysis on a specific item or just released information, that there's already sort of a mechanism within your process in order to receive really any information that you're after. So I was hoping that would sort of satisfy what council is looking for. And of course, if there's other things that look at.
The floor for questions or comments for staff. Councillor Tessier.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. My question is, because the information has to come to council, so when you say that individual councillors can go and see the CEO or the mayor for the inquiries, would that be brought back to council for them to see the information that was requested?
Certainly, if there's a few things that the mayor and I have been speaking on matters that are brought forward, but I think that if any councillor wishes to have something which is in the public interest, I would probably want the business of council to be done at this table. So if you're asking for something like that, if you wanted to just answer for your own personal edification, Councillor Tessier, I'd be happy to answer. If you wanted a report and us to generate a report, that would have to be done through a resolution of council. So if you're just chatting with me, coming to meet and or Ms. Craddock, that's fine. But the issue is that the policy and the controls that we have are in place, and they're pretty much standardized. There is oversight. in our policies. And so I'm not 100% sure, you know, what additional information you have, other than if there was something that you saw with respect to a specific tender or something that you needed some information on an answer for, then certainly, you know, we're happy to answer you on that so you can respond to your constituency. I don't know if that matters, but if to make my answer shorter, if you're asking a public policy or requesting a report that Councillor Pellerin or Councillor Restoul would also benefit from, I'd probably suggest that you put it on an agenda request, and then it would be dealt with here at the council table to be transparent.
So just to add as an example for it's just coming to mind is the Christmas dinner for the elderly over 65. So you have a policy that follows that. I don't know what the policy says. So if we want to report about that policy and the disbursements and all that, that's something that can be requested.
Through you, Madam Mayor, so we have a general practice. I don't know that we have a policy, but that we historically offer Christmas dinner for the elderly, seniors Christmas supper we call it. If you want to report as to what it costs and the financial undertaking, you would request that and as an agenda request. As per our policy, you would give us enough time to put it together. In general, you know, that one would be a quick one because it's got a budget line item, but you would make that request and then it would be an agenda item as soon as it would be available. And something like that, say if you requested that for, you know, like tomorrow, because general government is on the first meeting of the month, you would have that on the first meeting of April.
And the policy you referred to, is this policy or a different policy? To go by the policy.
No, if you're asking for a specific report, council is free to ask for whatever report by and put it on the agenda. If it's simple like that and you want to put that on the agenda, then we would put it on the agenda. If it isn't, I'd probably want you to have a resolution of council. If there's something that you're asking for us to, you know, to undertake, something that is quite heavy to do, I'd probably say you bring it forward, you talk about it here, and then council would direct staff by resolution. That's just governance 101.
Sorry if I could, there's additional information here apart from what was changed is, what is the West Nipissing Policy Manual?
That was supposed to be provided. So we do have a West Nipissing Policy Manual. Was it ever shared?
No, we were just doing some
minor
bit of
updates?
cleanup.
Okay. So we, you know, but in the interim, maybe indicate with a memo what's being cleaned up because Councillor Tessier has asked for that. That's on me. So yeah, we'll give you the policy manual. That's a public document. So it's certainly not something we're going to withhold. We should be providing that document, council policies, to all of council.
Is that a hard copy? Because I guess some are.
It could be hard, could be soft, could be electronic, I don't know. There are a lot of policies in there that are somewhat outdated and were passed upon amalgamation. So that's some of the cleaning up that some of our HR policies have evolved since then. And so that's what is being cleaned up to make it accurate. Some of them have not been repealed.
Are those welcome to council for review? Do they need to go to council for review?
It would depend. It depends on what the resolution was to pass the policy. It might have been repealed already and just is there. So I'd have to, the clerk's department would have to have a look at it. Okay. So a suggestion is, without having to do an agenda request, is that when we're able to, with the clerk's department, my recommendation is that we look at that and do a kind of an omnibus kind of look at what needs to be repealed and because it's no longer accurate.
I was planning to bring it to the first meeting.
Okay, so she was already on it.
Have questions, Councillor Tessier?
No.
Thank you. Floor is open for anybody else. Councillor Federici.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I would have loved to have, still have the check disbursement. But I understand it's not gonna be available. For the simple reason that, let's say the last meeting, I asked a question about a certain line of the budget. And primarily I was given a vague answer. And Alicia gave me a full answer. But if those check disbursement would have been there, I wouldn't have needed to ask the question. I could have just went, checked the check disbursement, and it would have given me the answer. That's my thought on this.
The full check register is easy to provide. It doesn't provide a lot of context.
The check register, as we talked, so I can do a check register, and that's just name, number of check, name, and amount. It doesn't have any lines, budget lines attached to it at all. I cannot produce a report that has all those budget lines that used to happen. I can just give you a report that says, you know, check number, amount, name.
Yeah, that would be perfect. Then you could go and say, okay,
I think that if you have specific questions on matters, you can ask it. There's some inference that we have something to hide. It's just, it deals with roles, responsibilities, policy, and oversight. And the detail of that and the production of that, I'm just not aware of any municipalities that are offering check registers. Lisa, do you know of any? Other than very small ones that are clerk treasurers?
Yeah, small municipalities, like I said, you know, where treasurer rather than a CAO may produce a check register, but they probably are not doing any other financial reporting to council. That probably is their only financial reporting that they're doing to council.
Right.
What kind of, I'm sorry, I can't cover.
the reason I'm going to that, because I had the experience of sitting on a board with a staff member beside me for 4 years. And at one point, we found out that it was a fraud from over $200,000 from that person. The accountant that was with us on that board then suggested that we add, I'm not implying that it's happening here or it could happen, but you never know when there's money involved. So she suggested that we should see the check disbursement and then guarantee you, if there was 8 or 10 of us at the time, 8 or 10 pair of eyes at every meeting, it would have kept that person probably a little bit more honest. It's because it happened to me. That's why I'm bringing it up. You never know.
Thank you. Would you want to suggest that we amend the policy to include that and see if there's council appetite for it?
Sure, yeah.
Okay. So, Councillor Tessier?
I want to add that through the independent auditor's report on June 23rd, they provide the responsibilities, and it does state in there that the risk of not detecting a material misstatement resulting from fraud is higher than resulting from error, as fraud may involve collusion, forgery, intentional omissions, misrepresentation, or the override of internal control. So it's harder for them to identify it because they're just looking, I guess, at a lump, like a full year of things, rather than if we have disbursement, it's monthly, and then we can see what's going on as things are.
So as a group of policy developers, you have a treasurer, a CA, you have policies and control policies. that are in place. You have purchase order systems that are very robust with respect to requisitions and disbursements. There's no checks that are issued without under our procurement policy that are not either vetted by myself at a certain level and Elisa and managers at a different level. So the issue of being able to put that kind of check, the only way that would be able to happen, and it would have to happen on a very large scale, would be if the treasurer and or I would be complicit in it. So the policies that we have, the policies that are audited by Baker Tilly, in my opinion, are sufficient. I just go back to roles and responsibilities with respect to overseeing checks and at what level of municipality do you get. Like we were approving, we have a $40 million budget, so divide that by 12 and take the amount of checks that are cut. How many suppliers do we have? 4,000, 4,000. So it's quite a large document, and in my opinion, when I sit on other boards, it's really not the role for a larger organization. When you're in a smaller organization, or you sit on a board on a smaller organization, that's where fraud can take place. Because the amounts are smaller and you can the controls are less. But a municipality like this, I don't believe that that's the case. If council wishes to do it, that's fine. It's just to me, it's just getting into the weeds a little bit. And it really doesn't add value in terms of the amount of time you're spending looking at check per check. We used to do what, pizza. We used to have questions for pizza for pool parties, and that's the level of discussion that you have. What's this? So anyway, this is my opinion, but if council wishes to do that, you can pass the word to it. So.
Okay, so, Councillor Tessier?
Thank you. Madam Mayor, so I just want to reemphasize that in the Municipal Act, maybe I'm interpreting it not correctly, but it is the role of council, which is council at this table, to ensure the accountability and transparency of the operation of the municipality, including the activities of senior management of municipality. I know that management through the municipal administration, there's a category for the municipal to have their own policies, but also council has responsibility for the taxpayers, their shareholders, to maintain financial integrity of the municipality. So, and I believe that providing check disbursements is a proper way of doing it. There might be lots, but at least we have material that we can look at and see and compare with financial statements, or maybe bring up more questions that we may have.
Councillor Roy?
Thank you to you, Madam Mayor. I'd like to come back to the point of these check disbursements aren't even possible, right? To get the name, number of the check, and amount of the check, I think that's absolutely relevant to us as a council. Like I know everyone's looking for ways to try and limit fraud, but I don't think this is the one. This is a way that would really benefit the time put into it. I'm thinking of my work, for example. If the board on my work gets all my gas receipts, they have no clue, or one of my coworkers' gas receipts, they have no clue if that coworker is driving all over town. That's up to the staff management to kind of find those discrepancies and maybe act on them in that moment. I think that's why we have our staff and all these audits to try and catch these frauds if they are happening. But to see checks of an amount and kind of just guess, oh, what would this one be? And then it ends up being a very valid check. And then what's this one? We're also using a lot of time on our staff there. So I'm just not too sure if this is a way to try and limit fraud really with these checks with a number and an amount on them.
I'm going to go to Councillor St. Louis first.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Through you, I do understand what Councillor Pedre and Councillor Tessie are looking for or trying to, the information they're trying to get. However, I think that at the last meeting, we speak about that if you have a concern about an issue, if you have a concern of a fund that's not being properly done, that's what we should focus on. So if I have a concern about, for example, people getting the ice in Verner for free and it's not being reported, but it comes to us, that's how we need to put it on the agenda. And I believe that's what Mr. Barber was saying, that that's how we target it, as opposed to, I'm sorry, but to have the time to look at all the checks, all the names, all the numbers that Ms. Craddock would provide us every month. I mean, that's a lot for us as council to do at the end of the month and get prepared for the next meeting, right? I'm not saying it, I understand what you're saying, I get it, but I think if there's something that affects us or you find out or you become aware about, that's the part that we need to focus on. And that's where we ask for it. And that's where the transparency will come through, is because we have to put faith in the management that we have, that they're going to do their due diligence and they're going to do their jobs. If at some point we have concerns about it, then that's where we question it. If we become aware of something, that's where we question it, and that's how we move forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Restall, do you still have your hand up, or?
He left me a little bit of crumbs there.
Okay. Councillor Restall?
Through you, Madam Mayor, I'm looking at the documents that we have in front of us, and I'm looking at 4.2 with the financial matters, and you look at the long list of items and policies that we have there in place, and starting as high as the audit and going down the whole list that we have in front of us. And we have a budget and financial control policy, capital expenditure control policy, and a number of others. And we develop those, or councils before us develop those, and we put those policies in place. Audits are things that happen every year. We have a lot of controls as it exists right now. And I think, like Councillor St. Louis mentioned, we have staff. You have faith in staff. You have to believe in your staff as well. Our job is to set the policy. Staff's job is to implement that policy, and everybody's here for the benefit of our taxpayers in the municipality. So I don't see for myself the benefit of going through, I don't even know how long this document would be with every check that's being cut.
I think we did an average about 800 checks per month.
And with our meetings, to be able to sit here and go, or even go through it before and then come here and question every single check. And that's only one part of the equation, right? We have HR costs, we have all types of things. A check rec isn't, or a check registry isn't going to cover every single dollar that either comes in or goes out of the municipality. We have staff, very, very capable staff who've been in their positions for a very long time. And my belief is that we have all the controls that we need, especially if you look at the other piece that's been added here with the ad hoc financial reports to council, as we'd like to request them. I just believe everything's right here in front of us. I don't see the benefit of adding something else that's going to be very tedious for staff and for us.
I believe that was approximately the math when I asked you. It was over 9,000 checks per year.
Oh, but and EFT transfers on, and I don't have the number on the top of my head anymore.
It was discussion last meeting.
Yeah.
We came to about 800 was the number. Okay. So, Councillor Pellerin did want to put that back on if council's in favor of are there any other comments just specifically on the check register? And we'll move on to other parts of the policy. So we'd just like to see a quick show of hands whether council would like to see check register as part of this policy. Okay, so the check registers will not make up part of this policy. Is there any other questions on any other sections of the policy that are provided here? I do have a few comments of my own, if you'd like me to start. In the updates to the policy, you've taken out interim reports to council and just replaced it with ad hoc financial reports. Do we get quarterly variance reports right now, like our budget to actuals on a quarterly basis?
Yeah, that's actually part of the budget and financial control policy. So the quarterly reporting, when it's produced, is part of that policy.
That's 2023-136? Sorry, is that
I don't
policy?
know. It's the budget and financial control policy and the capital expenditure policy. They both speak to when reports will come to council. But yes, the quarterly
It
budget
is
to actual
quarterly,
is,
though?
yeah.
And is there kind of a set time? So
It's actually trimester, right?
It's set up quarterly, but starting on Q2.
Right.
So we don't get a Q1 report
So-
because you're busy doing your year ends, and I understand
Yeah.
that. So the year ends are presented, we get the audited financial reports that cover the full year of the previous year.
So to respond, I think it's because of the budget process.
Okay,
So in the winter months, we don't have the budget established yet in a meeting. If in our refinement, we were able to pass a budget in the fall, we passed conceptually a budget, but if we were to pass it in the fall, then we would give you Q1, but so we don't. So we give you a Q2, Q3, and year end.
and what is the time for receiving Q2, Q3, and year end approximately?
Typically about, when the reconciliation for Q2 is around June, Q3
Well,
is,
Q2 ends June 30th.
Yeah, so Q2 ends June 30th, and then it'll come to because we're into the single meeting, so then it comes into the August,
July. So
right? Because have it ready for July is usually not possible. And then
shortly
Q3
there.
September is usually not ready for the first week of October. It's usually later. And then the year end is going to be sort of next go around because it takes longer to put the year end together. Yeah.
When will we see the year end for 2023?
I forget whether I told you I would have it on the next meeting to be received or on the April one. And so you'll get a year end from me, and then the auditors will come
Yes.
in sort of May or June and do their consolidated statements as well.
My preference is just for clarity, it would be to keep in the interim reports to council, as in like that, one of the expectations is that those quarterly reports will be made available, because I don't want it to be something that we have to ask. Like, to me, that's what the interim reports is. It's these Q3 reports, is that, or like the quarterly reports.
Certainly, and if council wishes to leave that language in there, I just sort of renamed it because the interim reports are covered in the budget and financial control policy. The budget and financial control policies, these are the reports, this is when they'll come, and the same with the capital. So rather than leaving it as a separate line, but it's entirely how council would like to see the language.
I don't know whether to, like, is there anybody else who would like to see the interim report left in just as it's there? Or are you happy with it, just the language staying as ad hoc? Okay,
the ad hoc would be different than what you're required. If in the interest of transparency, you want to add a number and say interim reports to council as contained in the two
I can't
policies.
find the reference in the policy as we're sitting here, so like I'm just having a hard time. Like I'd like to see the language of it, and I don't right now, and I don't know if there's an extra set of eyes that can help me find that language, because that would make me feel a little more like, here we go. And how, is there the same kind of quarterly report? Like it mentions, I did just find it, it does mention operating budget. Is there a report that comes to council on a regular basis that gives our kind of spending on our capital budget? So when we look at our capital items that we've approved on our capital budget, do we get a report that says, okay, this project was budgeted for this, the tender came in at this, and the final cost of the project was that, or it gives us an idea of where the project is along completion?
So again, in the capital expenditure report, it does about the reporting. So the managers and directors do come to you with sort of updates on just operational, But again, quarterly, you'll get that update to how far along we are financially in those projects. Are they in line with budget? It also gives you the thresholds for in between reporting, in between those quarterly reports, if things are going really off the rail, at what point we come to council and say, oh my goodness, we need to look at things, you know? So it's, yeah, those reports and thresholds are contained within the capital policy as well.
I'm sorry, I know all the answers are probably in these papers. What's the threshold for reporting budget anomalies to council? Like I know within maybe 10%, is it 10%? So let's say a capital project was awarded for $1 million and the project goes over budget. At what point would council be informed that that project was over the approved budget?
So again, it depends on the threshold of the capital project. So projects, it is about the 10%. But then with projects over 500,000, then it's just the 50,000 threshold is the threshold. Yeah.
And anything over the 50,000 on those larger projects would come to council and say, like, we have this going on, kind of thing.
Correct. Yeah.
I think that, does anybody else have any questions while I check my notes again? Okay. You know, I would like to see the interim reports remain. Would I have any support from council just to leave that wording in and add the ad hoc as an extra item? Show of hands. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Thank you. Okay, so if we could just amend the policy to keep in the interim reports ad hoc. Does anybody else have any other questions on the policy? Okay, so that will come back in regular portion because that's a fairly simple.
Can I, excuse me?
Yes, sorry, I didn't.
So the ad hoc was something that was added that is not the interim report.
Yeah.
What you want is, in addition to what is in your capital expenditure control and your budget financial control policy, you would like that an additional number to indicate interim quarterly financial reports to council so that you're clear.
Yeah.
Yeah. But the ad hoc is different, so it would be, so ad hoc becomes 4 and
and then
renumber all the way down. Okay.
Yeah. That's not great.
Yeah.
Okay, I don't think this would need to come back to committee then. I would imagine with that small amendment that could come back for approval in the regular portion of the meeting next. No, that's okay. Okay, anything to close with or? Okay. With that, we'll move on to the next item. And that is the sale of land reserve policy. Okay, so we had this discussion, I think several times, in regards to disposal of municipally owned property and what would happen to that money. So there is a staff report there from Madame Dupin.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I think it's fairly straightforward. I believe that the query had come from Councillor Pellerin with regard to putting some language in place to ensure that land disposition proceeds were set aside for other land projects. So rather than a standalone policy, it made a little bit more sense to put it into the disposition policy to include it as an additional paragraph. So I included a further paragraph 13, which talks to the proceeds of the sale of municipal land, indicating that it'll be put into a sale of lands reserve fund, which is established to receive the funds for sales of municipally owned lands. It should be noted that this does not include tax sales. They would not fall into this category, nor would sales of parkland, because those parkland funds already have to go into a park reserve, so they're already going there. So basically the balance would be set aside for, and I put in here as many things as I could think of that would relate to land. So, you know, studies, investigations, purchases, or projects relating to land transactions that we have. So for studies for, you know, say property we were going to sell, if we had to get an environmental assessment, that property with council's permission, that fund could be accessed with council's permission to that if council was amenable. Oh,
Sorry, Ms. Craddock.
And I just want to add one, if you look at 13.5 and 13.7, it also just says, and council can liberate the funds for whatever it likes during budget time as well. So it doesn't mean that it's necessarily tied for just further land development. If council make a decision that the amounts be transferred to community services facilities reserve, then council can just transfer it to the place that it feels the need is.
that's what I got.
Okay, questions or comments on the policy then? Councillor Gani?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. On 13.3, was a jump. Can you explain? When I read that sentence regards to parkland, that the funds will be established to the Parkland Reserve Fund. So would the Cache Bay Trailer Park fall under this?
No, the Cache Bay Trailer Parks, through Madam Chair, the Cache Bay Trailer Park was surplus.
Okay.
And it was sold as surplus land. Parkland would be when somebody does a subdivision and they give the municipality a tract of land as
Okay.
parkland dedication.
Okay.
If we were to decide later we don't want that land, we're going to sell it, that money would go into the parkland fund.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. One more question, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor St. Louis?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So for this, is this on a moving forward, or is this going to the beginning of our term? So all the sales that we've done so far when Mr. Paladin first brought it up.
Ms. Craddock?
So since the Cache Bay Trailer Park Council has sort of by discussion acknowledged that the Cache Bay Trailer, and there was a couple since that time are into reserve, it becomes challenging to go back to the beginning of your term because we've closed year ends and things where things are. So a lot of that will have been closed off to your general reserve. If council directed, we could go and pull things out, but it really, other than the ones that we talked about from Cache Bay Trailer Park on, it would be a go forward process.
So sorry, so go forward from the Cache Bay Trailer Park on.
Yeah.
Would we be able to get a list of the land sales that we've completed since the beginning of our term and which ones will be moved into this? Just so there's real clarity on which sales. I know we've done a half a dozen, maybe. It'd just be nice for council to be aware of what's moved into this fund and what just kind of went into general reserve from the early days. Any questions, Councillor Pellerin?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just a comment. No, I'm happy with that policy. It's just a good way to keep track. Thank you.
Thank you. Anything else? Okay, so I didn't hear any suggestions for any amendments to the policy as presented by staff. Give everybody a last chance. So at this point, thank you very much for the work on this, both Mr. Chair and Ms. Craddock. And that will come back to council during the regular portion of the meeting for approval at our next. Thank you. Okay. Excellent. So that'll wrap up general government for this evening. We will move on to the planning committee, and there are 2 items on the agenda. For all of that, I'll pass it to Councillor Tessier.
Thank you, Mayor Rochelle. So the first item is short-term rental accommodation bylaw. So the ad hoc committee met and reviewed the highlights that are presented there. And there's also the draft bylaw with the changes. Do we need to go over the information of the changes, or has everybody had a chance to review? Or did Mrs. Ducharme want to add it?
Not really. The memo was fairly self-explanatory. If there's any questions relating to it, I'd be happy to address.
So are there, yeah, question, Councillor Pillay?
Where to begin? I find this policy so restrictive. It sucks the air right out of joie de vivre. Just a few examples, like I'm just wondering, like on page 5, 2.2.2. It's not much here, but the owner shall have proof of insurance. Like we don't ask that of a lodge or a tourist outfitter or. I'm just wondering how come we're nitpicking at so many places.
I don't know who the person, at first I'm not sure.
Yes.
Through you, Madam Chair, I won't speak to this specific policy, but most of the licenses that we issue, whether they're for food carts or vehicles for hire or anything, we typically request insurance because it is a license, something we are actually issuing a license for under the municipality. So there is some liability to the municipality if we were to issue a license without ensuring that the property or the vehicle or whatever the case may be was insured and fit for the occupation or whatever.
Site plan for the, like, does that mean that the owner would have to go and hire somebody to get a site plan approval?
Through you, Madam Chair, I think it would be just the same as we do with our building permits, where we generally, the customers, the ratepayers would provide us with a sketch of their property indicating where all the buildings are located and setbacks and so on and so forth. But it doesn't need to be prepared by a surveyor.
Okay. On the same page, 2.2.5. The operator shall ensure that parking is only permitted in the parking area with hard surface material or concrete or crushed stone. To me, it's the property is already there. If I own the camp and I decide to do a rental, if I want them to park in the lawn, that's gonna be my problem if they make tracks, you know? How come we go so far to tell them where to park?
This paragraph is pretty well consistent with our current zoning bylaw, which doesn't allow you to park on the lawn.
Okay. The other one is private roads. I know we've got a couple on our private road. We've got one on the next private road. I don't, what's the difference between having a house on the private road, a cottage, or this short-term rental? Why would that be excluded from?
Right.
This provision is fairly common in these types of bylaws. Private roads are generally, there's an agreement amongst the landowners as to the use of the road, and often an agreement regarding the maintenance and so on and so forth. Private roads are, as you know, there's a dominant and a servient tenement, so the road is built over top of somebody's property and who has granted the right of way, and they granted the right of way to the owner of that particular dwelling. In this case, the owner is then extending that right to paying customers. So given that when granting the right of way, the owner is only expecting that the occupant of the dwelling would be using it, not, providing it to, a bunch of people. This has come up as a complaint on a couple of service requests regard to, I would say, reckless use of the road by persons who weren't owners of the property. But any provision in here is certainly open for discussion and change.
Does anybody have any questions? Oh, sorry.
So actually that, thank you, through Madam Chair. That was one of my questions that Mr. Pellerin was just asking. I understand that the private roads are there, or this information is there for a reason. Also, through discussion, talking about being able to have emergency services, be able to get to the place. However, wouldn't some of that just fall on the owner and the insurance of the person that owns the, not a multi-residential, that's stuck in my head, the short-term rental, right? So wouldn't some of the onus fall on the person that owns a short-term rental that rents it out? And I mean, in my mind, they're gonna lose some of the money that says, listen, yes, I have a place that you can rent. However, if at some point in time that you're renting it, the owner beside that owns the road decides you're not going by, that's on them. Also, if the fire department or the EMS can't make it, it should be noted in the short-term rental. It should be advertised in the short-term rental that, please be advised, we have a short-term rental that is available. However, we cannot guarantee, and so on and so forth. And when they do get the insurance that we're talking about that they need to provide to us, that their insurance is aware that there's the possibility of the fire department and or the EMS not being able to attend. I don't know if there's a liability or anything that would fall under municipality. However, if we're able to cover our basis, I mean, we have places right now that are being utilized with private roads or whatnot. So to now turn around and tell them, I'm sorry, but you can't do it anymore, but they've been renting them out for the last 10, 15, 20 years. What about individuals that rent out cottages on islands? I mean, how does that work also, right? EMS and fire departments aren't able to get there as quick as anything else. So that's just my 2 cents. I think that an amendment of some sort to the road portion definitely is something that we need to look at or think of.
I think through you, Madam Chair, I think just to clarify, we're not saying if you're on a private road, you're not permitted to run a short-term rental. It says that anyone else located on that private road, that if you're going to ask for a license from the municipality to operate a short-term rental, that you have to go get the consent of everyone else on that road. Because to Ms. Ducharme's point, is if you and I are both sharing a private road, and then every weekend there's new guests coming into your operation and they're using the private road that we've agreed to share. We're just saying that before the municipality issues a license, that there has to be consent of everyone on that private road. So it's not that we're not allowing it. It's just that that's one of the steps to getting a license, is that you have to get all your neighbors' permission to be able to attract your clients using that private road. That's all that is.
And that's that's perfect, and that's what I'm getting at. I think that's not how I read this portion, so I don't know if that's how everybody else read this portion. But if that's not how I read it, but I agree, to me, that in my mind would be satisfactory. What?
Is there a question?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. I really do appreciate the effort of the ad hoc committee staff on this. I know, when we're piecing in together legislation like that, we can't always get it right the first time, and we always need to tweak it. So, I know, like, over the last couple months, even with the consultation, I was approached by different residents in my area, not just in my ward, but in other wards as well. And they made some, very valid points. And I get it that we need to strike a balance on, the safety and welfare, of the residents, the enjoyment of the properties, the environmental aspect of it, and making sure that our waterways, we don't get blue-green algae blooms, starting in the end of June. So we need to strike a balance. My opinion on it, if we accept it as is right now, we're gonna hit a little too hard some of the businesses that have been operating, legitimately over the past 15, 20 years, and that they are, residents of the area as well. And so what I would say is that, at least to start, not necessarily adopt it as is. I know, like, we're discussing some of the changes and whatnot. What I've noticed when I reviewed the new proposed bylaw is that the legal non-conforming clause or the grandfathering clause has not been included in the revised draft. And so and again, through being approached by different residents in the area, not just in my ward, but in other wards as well, there just seems to be that, I guess, misunderstanding of what will happen next if the bylaw is accepted first. Do they have to close? Do they have to sell their buildings? What is going to happen? And I know we're not talking, tens of millions of dollars into our economy, but they do, bring a whole lot of, positive aspects. There's always some bad apples that have kind of ruined it for the rest. But I'm more of striking a healthy balance between both and respecting the rights of, our taxpayers, and they can enjoy their properties without, having, excessive noise at all times of the day and illegal dumping of trash in the lakes or in the ditches and all that. But just have that balance between both, because if we do it as is, I think we're going to hurt, unfairly some of the operators that have been operating, and following the rules. And I know that, I can't speak for all of those that have, approached me, because, instances are very different. You can have a commercial operator, or, you could have someone who is, permanently disabled, who decides to rent out, their house, who, live on a private road, and they rent it out to family and friends for 4 to 6 weeks a year during the summer, during the peak time, and that supplements the income. So what I'm trying to get is that there's, varying, I guess, degrees on which it will affect people if we pass it as is. And what I would recommend, just as my opinion, if we can try to fit in a legal non-conforming clause, so at least we don't penalize what's already existing, and then with the demerit point systems and the bylaw, then we can kind of I want to say that in a bad sense, but go after the bad apples and then deal with the problematic areas as they arise with the new bylaw. But I'm thinking if we can at least include, a legal non-conforming clause, at least to kind of mitigate that, because what's happening, not just in Ontario, but I'm following what's happening across Canada, is different jurisdictions are setting up different rules. And let's say, like, for example, the mountain area and then the Muskokas, they may not have as much restriction on short-term rentals because they see there's a certain benefit, but they also see that, there are some issues that need to be dealt with, whether it's safety, whether it's, access with the fire department in case of a fire. I kind of understand, but my opinion is that we need to kind of strike a balance in between, because we're going to be hurting some people, some operators.
Thank you, Mr. Shine.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to make one clarification. There was never an indication in prior drafts that anyone, including current operators, wouldn't have to get a license. So there was never, there was always, everybody was always going to have to get a license, be they current operators or new operators.
But let's say, like, for example, if an operator has, let's say, like a Class A license and has a Class B, but in the Class B license has two properties within 1 kilometer of each other, we're penalizing that operator who already uses, his properties. And then, we kind of have to say, well, you can operate one, but you can't operate your other 2 or 3 on that same stretch of road within that 1 kilometer. So I'm just like, and I'm thinking at this point, like, we're not adopting the bylaw tonight, but I'm thinking, I personally would need more time to go into more detail and out, additional information. I know, like, we're discussing it tonight, but just I don't think, moving ahead as it's presented. I understand there's good merits on both ends, and like for example, there was the issue with Montreal where there was an Airbnb outfit, and there was a fire in the building, and there wasn't any fire access or window for one of the building, like one of the rooms, and that person actually died in that fire. So I know there's 2 extremes to this, and I'm thinking if we can be kind of in the middle, we can always change, we can always add later on. But if we can have a discussion on, what would happen to existing operators, whether it's a legal non-conforming clause or not, or something to not be as more, drastic when it comes to it, because it is going to hurt, people, whether they're residents, existing residents or, property owners who, have secondary residents. So.
I'm just taking the information in.
So my thinking from hearing your comments, Councillor Cochine, and what I was thinking as well is now that we have a more detailed draft than what we had before, and we had previous consultation prior to having this draft, are we able to involve the individuals who have the short-term rentals to give us their concerns with this new draft, this current draft, so that we can see how it impacts them? Because in turn, it's basically their lifestyles. Some have that for, like you said, disabled person has company and it helps with financially for that period of time. So
it's not up to me. It's up to everyone at this
so
table.
I guess, yes, on the chair, I'll put it to council if they want this draft to be, get consultation from the short-term rental owners, either through a survey or I think maybe a survey online or public consultation. I'm not sure what would be best.
We do still have all the comments from the prior consultation.
But because now we finalized it, like more defined as before, and then you've had people contact you with respect to the current draft that we have, that if we want to make sure that the people impacted can now let us know, how it's going to impact them as well. As Councillor.
Through you, Madam Chair. I don't know if I'm for or against more consultation if we've already done a lot, but I definitely suggest that if there's more consultation, it's open to anybody who wants to consult, because there's 2 sides to every issue, right? So if you're going to bring this document to people who operate these type of establishments, I don't know what the point is, because I can probably write down all their concerns right now without even talking to them. But if you're not consulting people who live next door to these places or in proximity, they're gonna have concerns as well. And they'll have their thoughts on what this document is included within as well. So if we want to go back to it again, that's us to decide, but I don't think it should be limited to just people who operate these, because like I said, I can write their comments right here, I'm sure.
Yeah, no, I agree. I
So-
apologize. Yeah, we'd be open to the public, yes. Comments, yes, Mayor?
I won't speak to like a deferral for more public consultation yet, because I think that there, like Councillor Cushing brought up some very good points. Trying to think who was at the public consultation, Councillor Tessie and myself and Councillor Gunn. Yeah. And, you know, like I was very impressed with we had a couple of residents show up who had had issues in the past, and it was interesting to hear with them. But the operators who showed up, you know, really expressed themselves very well. And for the most part, the things that we discussed in the first iterations of the bylaw were well accepted. We didn't run into one operator who was opposed to having occupancies based on septic systems, because I think most operators who are running in, you know, a tourist environment understand the importance of like keeping our waterways clean. And a lot of them understood the request for insurance because it is being operated in such a way that there may be additional liabilities. I think that I'm a little split on the whole private roads issue, because I don't see a whole lot of an issue with it, but I do understand the fact that for every private road, whether it's a right of way on through private property or public property, pays for the maintenance of that. So, you know, how do you balance the interest of somebody who's using property for a commercial purpose against a resident? And, you know, like, how do you figure out what's fair and what's right on that? But like from an overall perspective, I don't really have an issue with that. And as far as operators that are currently who have been operating within the environment, again, I agree with Councillor Cushing, where, you know, people have invested money into these properties, understanding that the system is working in a certain way. And I would want to design a bylaw that doesn't necessarily penalize those people. So I would be in favor of some kind of either opportunity for our existing operators to have a first dibs on the license. It doesn't mean, like, they still need to license and they still need to meet the septic and the occupancy permits and everything like that. But, you know, like have, you know, if we would have to decide if there are going to be things that we're going to waive on a grandfathering clause, like the 1 kilometer or the private road, whether, like, what would be included in a grandfather, because I don't think any of us would agree that we're going to waive the septic inspections or the safety inspections of the property. I think that we want guests coming to our municipality as tourists to stay in safe accommodations. I want them to be equipped with fire and smoke detectors and carbon monoxide detectors, and I want them to have fire extinguishers. But I also don't want to penalize people who have been already invested money and already operating within. I will speak to consultation shortly. We did online consultation. We have done in-person consultation, and I thought we got really good feedback both online and in person. And I know that each of us has received emails from concerned residents on both sides of the issue. So I don't know that a new public consultation is going to give us any more information than we already have. And I was speaking before the meeting with Councillor Crushane, and I've said it before and I say it again. I think anything that we do here at this table should not be overly burdensome for the good operators. They're not the people we're concerned about. These are the people who are bringing tourism into this community. But we do want to make sure, and that comes later in the bylaw, when we look at the enforcement and the fines and the demerit system, we want to make sure that the bylaw that we develop has the teeth to deal with people who are operating in such a way that it impacts the quality of life of the people who are living beside them or around them. And I think that if we can find, that's the balance that we're trying to find here.
Just to try and provide advice to council, I take no position either way. Just trying to, it's reminiscent of the last term's trailer bylaw, where we did a lot of consultation leading to nothing. I think that from my perspective, the decision has to be made at first. In general, do you wish to have a bylaw? It seems like you're spinning a bit, and then if there's a majority that say, yeah, we want a bylaw, it's just that whatever. I find that if we're just chairing, and no offense, it happens a lot, and we're going in a variety of different ways, then we're really not coming to any consensus to find a solution. My recommendation would be, and I don't know that it can happen tonight, and I think it would be a fairly lengthy meeting. It could go at the next meeting, but we'll have to keep that one light, is I would go to every point and I would go, so let's just say this is all that we want to talk about, but there's additional things like grandfather, camping trailer prohibition. Anybody, let's discuss whether you want to prohibit camping trailers and have a discussion, and then take that to a vote, and then honor the fact that if 5 people say, yeah, that's a good idea, fine. Private roads, have a discussion about it, say, we don't like that, so take it out, and then that, okay, and then move forward. Then you can have a consensus document at the end of the day where all of council will more or less agree. You won't all agree on every point, but it's such kind of an all-encompassing bylaw that if we keep going back and forth, you're not going to get it passed, not this way. So just my recommendation, Madam Chair and Madam Mayor, that if we look at it, I think the first point of discussion was if you feel that there's too much here and you feel that you need to go back and consult again, then that should be a discussion posed before council. Do you wish to bring this back to the public, or do you feel you have the public's information and expectations enough? And if and then if you want to go back, then we'll frame something. If you want to continue, then we need to find a framework where the different clauses that are impactful are discussed, and say, okay, Councillor Cochin would like to see grandfathering. If 5 people agree, then grandfather is going to come in. And then how does that happen? The mayor's suggestion is give them first come, first serve. Then the next item goes to, let's say, camping trailers, occupant, or is everybody in favor with occupancy limits? Yes, fair enough, then that'll be included. But unless we start doing that, it looks like the ad hoc committee discuss things and then we're going back off of stuff. So it was a good idea because it worked for our procedural bylaw, but it doesn't seem to be working very well here, because this, and I can see why it would work for the procedural bylaw, because that's an internal document, but this is a document that positively and adversely affects the members of the public. And so just my recommendation to council on that process, I think you would end up with a document, but I'm getting a sense that some folks may be against the concept of having a bylaw. Does everybody want the bylaw? I'm not chairing, but does everybody want a bylaw?
Yeah.
Then at least we're there. So then now it's what's in it. And then, so now we have some options. It's a menu. Do you want relish on that hamburger? Nope, no relish. And then we go down and down, and then you'll have a bylaw. I remember, the clerk and I in the last term, poking our eyes out, trying to get to a trailer bylaw, and unless we get to the points and debate them and discuss them, do you want to regulate having trailer bylaws and what do you want to regulate? Well, we want the environmental aspect covered. That was the common thing. But it got so convoluted that we ended up throwing it away. So if you want to move forward, my suggestion is you target every discussion and every decision and have both sides of it, every discussion, and it might not be the same, you might be against this, but pro that. But at least you have a consensus at every point, or a 5-4, 6-3, unanimous, whatever. Okay, that's in. Let's just put it aside then, because and then respect the fact that if you don't get your way though, that, if you follow that process, then at least you'll be able to find the bylaw. And it's just a recommendation. Otherwise, it's, you're just going to keep spinning.
Thank you.
It is break time, but I would like to see us move a little bit more forward on this.
Then my recommendation
then
is
we
going
have-
one at a time.
And so, if we want to go through it one at a time, and at least get a start, we can see where everybody or mostly everybody is together. And where we're closer, there's a bit of a split, we can go back and maybe have a little bit more of a discussion. Councillor Tessier, would you like me to just start by going through some of the questions, or?
You're at the 8 o'clock, or perhaps after.
Okay, see what, let's break and we'll chat and we'll look at how to proceed after break. I'm just waiting for.
Yeah, I'm just kind of, I
Sorry.
didn't realize the time had gone so quickly.
Yeah.
I'll need to ask for a mover in a second.
Mover and a seconder for break, please. Councillor Gagne and Councillor St. Louis.
It is moved by Councillor Gagne and seconded by Councillor St. Louis. At approximately 8:05 PM, a motion was tabled for a 10-minute recess.
Thank you. All in favor? Carries. Thank you. Yeah. Hey, good evening, welcome back. For those of you who are just joining us, we're having a discussion in regards to the short-term rental. It's part of our committee of the whole discussion. We have taken a considerable amount of time already. This is an important piece with a lot of moving pieces. And I'm going to recommend that we continue the conversation in our next committee of the whole meeting. And in the meantime, our chair, Councillor Tessier, will work with planning to go over those discussion leads as far as, the questions we need to answer to see. Let's find out where we all agree in principle on the big items. And we'll probably be able to identify 4 or 5 issues that we want to have a little bit deeper discussion on different parts of the bylaw. We are going to attempt to keep the next meeting relatively light, put this up front so we can pay it quite a bit of attention and hopefully get to a place where we all agree. So if council would support that. We do have other items on the agenda that are pressing from a time sensitive matter, and we do want to make sure that we have time to address all those things this meeting. So if I could see a show of hands that we're okay with moving discussion again to the next meeting. Appreciate that. Thank you all for your input so far. Councillor Tessier, thank you for chairing that. We do have one more item under planning, so I will pass the floor back to Councillor Tessier.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So the next item is on multi-residential and mixed-use building height restrictions. I'll pass it on to Madam Sharp.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The item had come up at a meeting last year, and I do apologize for the delay in getting it back. It was a proposal to increase the height of mixed use and multi-residential buildings. And you'll see that I have put together a report to address some of the concerns and some of the considerations, I suppose is the correct word, in making a decision to do that. And that perhaps a unilateral decision to do so might not be wise in light of fire and building code and this sort of thing. And in light of the fact that we will be moving into very, very shortly a comprehensive review of our official plan, our bylaw, our downtown core, and a whole myriad of different issues. It's recommended that we perhaps let that discussion evolve at that point in time, at which time the fire chief, the building inspector could be part of that stakeholder consultation. So.
Thank you, Madam Deschamps. Does anybody have any questions or comments regarding memo? Councilor Bellarmine?
Just a quick question, Melanie. The official plan, is it under review now, or has it been tendered out?
To Madam Chair, yes, the tender closes the first week, I think, in 2 days.
And how long do you figure it's gonna take?
I believe we should get a good start on it this year with a view of early next year.
Okay, thank you.
Comments or questions? Yes, ma'am.
Just follow up with Councillor Pellerina's question. So that's just the official plan part of it. That has lots of consultation involved in it, and
yes, and the zoning bylaw always falls out of the official.
But when you're talking about timelines, you're talking about the official plan early next year, and then can you walk through the process as far as does the official plan have to be approved by MMAH before the zoning bylaw changes are made? Like how long is the process in total? So when we have an updated official plan and a new zoning bylaw, when will that be?
So since the last go around with official plans, the municipality has now received delegated authority to approve its own official plans.
Okay.
So it doesn't have to go to MMH like it did the last time. They get the opportunity to comment, but they're not the approval authority. This council is the approval authority, providing MMH would obviously comment on something that was completely offside, as long as it's within policy. So that following the official plan, which again is not a rewrite, it's an update to the existing, that we have. And out of that, if there were any major policy changes that would be reflected in the zoning bylaw, then that would translate through to subsequent changes to the zoning bylaw.
Okay, and I believe it's the expectation that the new provincial policy statement will be released hopefully by the end of this year, like it is slated for 2024. Is there any disadvantage to starting the official plan process before we get the updated provincial policy statement? Like, I'm assuming that there will be at least some things in that policy statement that will impact what the official plan is going to look like.
No, that wouldn't make any difference because we've had, this will be the 5th change to the policy statements that has taken place since 2004, which the existing was based on. So the document needs to be brought into line on a number of levels, and certainly before it was actually adopted, if there had been any dramatic change in policy, that would have to be reflected in the final document.
Okay, but it's not going to hold us back.
No.
Okay, thank you. Those questions.
Thank you. Councillor Pellet?
Just the question that I made. When we did the plan originally, we had quite a few public meetings. Was that going to be similar?
Yes.
Oh, yeah? Good.
Perhaps, just through you, Madam Chair, perhaps not to the extent of the first one, because that was the first official plan of the amalgamated municipality, so there was a lot of ground to cover. There will be public consultations, certainly, with different stakeholder groups, and they'll all be advertised, but it'll be, a schedule will be posted once the award is made of what's going to happen.
Thank you.
Comments or questions? Yes, Councillor Pellet?
When we brought this subject in regards to the height of the buildings being maxed out at currently 3, we had requested to see if we could go higher, 4 or 5. And in this report, there's explanations, but what happens if a developer comes here and says, I want to build a 12-story rental building? So I know there's specifics, but currently the way that I'm seeing as the analysis is that currently we're set at 3 and we want to stay at 3 for now. That's the way
Can I just respond?
If I'm mistaken.
Yeah, I just, and I think it's somewhere in this report. Right now, we don't have any vacant multi-residential land in West Nipissing. So anyone coming to build is going to have to go through the rezoning process anyways, and that height consideration would be part of that. If they wanted to build it and the land was big enough, and because we just did one not too long ago, exactly the same thing, and the property was plenty big enough to accommodate and fire suppression and all those things, and it was approved at, I think, 4 stories.
Oh, okay, perfect. Thanks for the clarification. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Yeah.
Are, the developers who are used to operating in this space, would they be put off by story limit, or if they had a plan for something, they know they can come and try to work on a plan with our planning department? There is some flexibility, and developers are aware that council and municipality will work with them to address.
I think that, through you, Madam Chair, I think that most developers know that we're always open for business in West Nipissing.
Or so.
Yeah.
Is that zone multi-residential right now? It's zone commercial right now. Okay, thank you.
Yes, Councillor Raval?
Thank you, through you, Madam Chair. As stated in the recommendation, I would suggest that we just remain status quo and then we deal with it kind of at a case by case, similar to that, I believe it was Russell Street. Shows here that we approved a 4th story. And I also like to believe that if somebody's coming in looking to build a 6-story apartment building, chances are they're going to consult with our planning department at the start, and just the information on that it would come to council and then we would make a decision at that point. I think would be good at this stage, and then that way we wouldn't be, I noticed here there'd be a chance of duplicating public consultation which takes a lot of staff time. There's some money involved in that as well. So in my opinion, that recommendation sits well with my process, and that's what I would follow. Just to leave it status quo and then case by case.
Any more questions, comments? So does council agree with the recommendation brought by staff? All in favor? Back to you, Madam Mayor.
Okay, thank you very much, Councillor Cookby. Next, we move on to 5.3, our Environmental Services Committee. And for that, I will pass the floor to our chair, Councillor Caitlin Nichol.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The first point is blue box transition. In our packages, we received the staff report. It explains the changes to the provincial blue box program. And there's a transition period from July 1st to December 31st in 2025. And there needs to be a decision made on whether or not the municipality will provide services during that time. To give us a bit of background information, I will pass it to Mr. Barbo, as he has a little more insight than I do on this.
Very little. Actually, the memo speaks for itself with respect to the analysis. If you have any questions, we'd be happy to answer them. But basically, as of July 1st, 2025, the municipality will no longer be offering residential recycling. The province has passed a law where that's going to the producers, and it's a whole different system. At that point, we are then requested to bid, and Elisa and Liz and Jason would speak more to it, but we would be able to request, we wanted to get into the business and basically have a bid, but to bid, it's on a region-wide basis, so it's not even necessarily a municipal basis. And so the recommendation to cut this fairly short is that effective July 1st, we allow whoever wins the bid to get into the recycling business. We don't have the capacity to expand that aspect of our business. There are a lot of other challenges with respect to solid waste management. And I believe that this is it's a great opportunity and initiative for council to consolidate our resources and become more efficient and effective with respect to solid waste management in other areas. I don't know, Elisa, if you have more to add, or Liz.
No, I think, Mr. Rowe, that does sum it up. It really is the looking at is, so our transition date is July 1st, and there is just this option from July 1st to December 31st. If the municipality wishes to continue doing the curbside collection in the depots, they would pay us for that period. After that, it is, as Mr. Barlow said, that it's we'd have to be bidding now on a regional contract or a district-wide contract. And we simply do not have the facilities for that. However, they do need a decision on whether we're choosing to opt in or opt out on the collection process for that transition at July to December of 2025.
Do any councillors have any questions or comments?
Thank you to you, Madam Chair. I always say no question's a stupid question, but this one might be. So from that time period, I can't put my blue bins at my street. Like, I'll just put it in my garbage.
Oh, no, there would be
No disruption in services.
Okay. I missed that.
Yeah, so in the period from July 1st, 2025 to December 31st, 2025, they do things exactly the way we're doing it right now. So the folks that have just depots, continue with just depots. The folks that have got curbside, continue with curbside. They take exactly everything that we're taking right now. It's just going to be a different colored truck that is driving. Once the entire province has transitioned and we're kind of late in the game, then they're going to start to look at, okay, so we want everyone to actually be recycling the same things across the province. So we may actually find that we've got an expanded pool of things that are recyclable compared to what we have right now, because they'll bring, the producers will come in. They will not walk away from any areas, but they may decide that they actually want to do curbside across the entire municipality instead of any depots at all. You know, they won't walk away from Blue Box, but how they deliver the Blue Box might be a little bit different past December 2025. But it's that, you know, it's kind of that level of standardizing recycling and ensuring that everyone has the service, and Blue Boxes will retain, at all residential will retain Blue Box services. They may actually get enhanced services out of this, depending on how the organizing agency sees efficiencies and effectiveness in their organization.
Councilor Tessie? Thank you, through you, Madam Chair. So the Blue Box, will that cover the entire municipality now, or just the regions where they currently have curbside?
In the transition, the services remain exactly the same. So those folks that have got curbside will remain with curbside. Those that have got depots will remain with depots. What happens post January 2026 is a little bit, they'll still have services. They may get better services, but that's the point.
So to put a finer point on it, the landfill sites and their containers where we do recycling, that will continue.
Councilor Bonnet?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So who pays for the new service? Are we getting charged back?
The producers. And so right now we actually get a chunk of funding that comes for Blue Box funding that is part of this. There was a resource agency that deals with the producers, and the producers are everyone who produces packaging. You know, every you know, corporation that produces packaging fits into this producers, and they were supposed to pay money in that this other agency, you know, would divide amongst the municipalities, and it never worked well, and it was always a fight. And so the province said, all right, we're going to send it right back to the producers. The producers are responsible for the financial, with the hopes that perhaps they'll make better choices on their packaging, you know. But yeah, it's not going to be a municipality expense.
Right, perfect. Thank you.
Madam Mayor?
Will this transition, like, I know right now you're asking for a decision just on what to do from that July to December. However, I think that the information of the transition of Blue Box program is new to all of us, so I know that we may have some questions that fall a little bit outside of that, so I will just preface it with that. So once this transition takes place, right now we receive funding from a mysterious agency.
It's not really mysterious,
environmental
yes.
services that offsets the cost, our costs of recycling. Do we recover 100% of our costs on the recycling right now? So when the full transition occurs in January 2026, will that result in a net savings to the municipality as far as the service?
Yes, yeah, because we don't
have but it will also create an impact on the workers at our landfill site.
There's not a direct correlation for that, because there are a lot of other issues that are coming into play. Of course, we look at efficiency and effectiveness in our operations, and efficiencies, if we can find efficiencies, that's fine. But we have been running really thin, and we do have, and Madam Mayor, we discussed an area in you know, a remote area. So this might allow us to redeploy some resources. So it's not necessarily a decision that it's a fait accompli, where the recycling people are no longer going to be. They may be redeployed, but you know, definitely we'd be looking at efficiencies and effectiveness in our solid waste operations.
Okay, and just one more question. And I suppose you don't have a crystal ball, but is there an expected impact to the levels of service, not during that transition period, but after the full transition? So after January, I know you've said that during the transition, they do everything that we do right now. But there's, you say it could get better, but, could there be decisions that some areas that now are receiving curbside no longer receive curbside and have to go to depot recycling? Like, are there expected impacts to level of service for our residents?
To you, Madam Chair, the information we have is there shouldn't be any impacts in that way. There may be a standardization of how things are collected. I mean, I was just in a place that has these really big blue boxes that have trucks that load instead of the small blue boxes and stuff like that. So there might be a standardization that way. If I were to guess, there might be some enhancements in areas of how we're offering recycling in our more remote areas, and there might be enhancements in those areas. That would be up to the providers to decide with respect to the standardization provincially.
Thank you.
Just to further on that comment, sparked a little, I wonder, so if we were to expand our blue box curbside pickup, they'd have to do that? That's what I find odd too, so then it wouldn't, there's that side as well, so I'm a little worried about the loss of service as well, but also I could see, I just don't really understand how that would work. Right, if we decided to just embark on this expansion of curbside pickup, they would have to meet that level of service for this time and then not cut back on it. That's a little.
So you and I think Ms. Craddock and or Liz or Jason, but I think we've been providing them data. You have to provide them data on an annual basis, so they're aware of the levels of service, so they would be aware of any changes to the level of service.
Thank you. And I like the program because it should help producers limit their waste and their recycling. But I know in the past I've said naming trucks, maybe don't name our recycling trucks. If we need that year or two, So, thank you.
Any other questions or comments? I don't see on here the date that we need to provide a decision by, unless I missed it. Would you know?
So there's actually a resolution in the regular portion of the meetings. They need a decision by the 15th of March.
Okay, so with that, who would be in favor of not, oops, the exact words, not maintaining the services during the transition period as it is recommended? Did I word that wrong?
So you mean to follow the recommendation?
To follow the recommendation of staff. Yeah.
Okay.
Worded it backwards.
The resolution will come properly. It's very important.
Okay, well, we'll leave it at that. Moving on to our budget then. Okay. Oh, in our packages, we also have the solid waste budget. It's pretty straightforward. I won't go through it line by line, but if any counselors have any questions on any areas, I'm sure any of the staff would be happy for you. The biggest changes, it's just some 2024 special projects. The big one being the engineering at the Sturgeon Falls site for the expansion of landfill. I'll open the floor to any questions or comments.
If staff isn't going to present the budget,
I think we will.
okay.
I can do the run through.
Yay.
I didn't know that's where people was going with that, it was a very quiet room. So looking at the, there's a couple things that kind of roll in. In 2023, as council's probably aware that a number of our all of our outlying smaller landfills used to be run by these landfill boards. And over the last few years, we've slowly been trickling those, turning them into taking kind of municipal control and putting municipal employees out at the landfill sites. So in 2023, Muskasong came under kind of the municipalities is actually got employees there as opposed to the board. In 2024, River Valley is going to come in. So you're going to see a bit of a change between, the contractor line isn't hardly moving at all, but that's because we're actually losing some of the small contractor costs for these outlying areas and replacing it with wage costs for employees. So there's a little bit of sort of back and forth that happens with that in the budget. And so River Valley is the last one that will sort of bring in under the umbrella. And then after that case, the municipality runs all the landfills, save and except Field and Sturgeon Falls site, which we contract WNES to operate for us. So small increase in professional fees, and that again is just kind of year over year for our engineering firm, consulting firm that take care of making sure that all of our annual reporting is done, our well monitoring at Sturgeon Falls and the Verner site, and just maintain all of that for us. Small increase to repairs and maintenance, just to sort of reflect what's been going on in the actuals. And as we take on all of these landfill sites, so we're not paying boards to do the work, we're doing the work ourselves now. Looking at the second page there, a big change there is the hazardous waste line. So the hazardous waste line is actually a fee that we pay. It's a per household fee that we pay to North Bay, and they accept hazardous waste at the depot beside the bus station there in North Bay from our residents. And so we were notified just early in the year, early January, that the fees were increasing substantially. In my 13 years here, it's actually the first time they've increased fees. On discussion with Ms. Henning and Mr. Sullivan, they do concur that yes, handling hazardous waste has become more expensive, and right now it's still a reasonable option for us to continue with that as we look at our overall how we handle solid waste and what we're doing, and as we look at our redevelopment. Those were discussions that we'll have as we kind of go down the road, but for this year they felt that it was a reasonable continuation. As Councillor Nicola alluded to, that when you look at special projects, that is stuff that's all transferred out of in and out of reserve or funded by reserve, and we use it for sort of things that are not typical year over year. It's actually a little bit of a decrease over last year, just because we're getting closer to having the heavy lifting on all the engineering studies done. So both Verner and Sturgeon Falls, we're still doing some engineering designs, surveys, sort of compliance to do the expansion cells. Ms. Henning and Mr. Sullivan can certainly speak more to what the plans are, but this year is still all design with sort of construction starting in 2025. I think there is actually some clearing stuff that might happen this year.
Possibly, but it will most likely be
Yeah.
for 2025.
And then the rest is just some, capacity surveys. We do those on kind of routine rotating basis on our smaller sites. You will see that there is a proposal to put, and I use free in quotes, sort of that recycle store in Field, that there's a proposal to put that in as a special project this year as well. We are looking at a proposed surplus of $82,000-ish coming over from the 2023 year. That is primarily coming out of the contractor line, a little bit more in the recycling revenue. We split the recycling revenue with WNES as well. And that just sort of will vary depending on the work that Mr. Sullivan plans to get completed in the year for the landfill sites. I'll turn it back to you now, Madam Chair.
One additional point that for the Kipling landfill, part of the wages are increased.
Correct.
There was a proposal to have that additional time that was put on there, that was requested by the residents of Kipling, so that in May and September, it'll be open on Wednesdays, and that's proposed. I spoke to the attendant, because I use that landfill to confirm that it's still doable and wanted and needed. So,
Thank you. Is there any questions or comments about the budget? Madam Mayor?
On the revenues under miscellaneous income, what does that encompass?
That will be primarily our, if we have additional recycling revenue that falls into that.
And where, rate revenue is the charge that goes on people's tax bills for waste removal?
Yes.
Okay, and where is the revenue from, like dump, like gate dump?
So there's a very small amount of tipping fees, and it sits in the miscellaneous as well. So environmental services actually hangs on to the revenue from the Sturgeon Falls site. So there's just a small amount at the outside, at the rural sites, there's only a small amount of tipping fees.
Is Sturgeon Falls is Sturgeon Falls the only landfill that charges a fee?
Oh, no, the rural sites do charge for if you're bringing in refrigerators or boats, construction material at the burner site, things like that, but it's certainly much less. The commercial stuff all goes to the Sturgeon Falls site.
No, just the tipping fees would be under the contractors, or WNES collects the tipping fees. And so this is the overall budget, and then we have a company, Nipissing Environmental Services, that basically has their own budget, and then what they need from us to run the trucks and pick up and everything. They bill us and that, but then this is net of their tipping fees. Yeah, and so, yeah, basically.
And the Board of West Nipissing Environmental Services approves their internal?
They approve their budget. They're a board, a corporate board.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Councilor Patsy? Madam Chair, the hazardous waste, I believe last year there wasn't a depot here. It's to bring, but has that changed?
To review some of this answer, but we've never had a hazardous waste depot in West Nipissing. Probably, I remember going to the North Bay model probably in the early 2000s, and we've been using that probably ever since. So North Bay has handled their hazardous waste, and this is what they bill us back.
So they go to North Bay and they get.
People who want to get rid of
These are the
hazardous waste in West
misunderstandings.
Nipissing have to go there.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Councilor Kershey?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Through you, Madam Chair, I don't know, like last year we had a kind of like an impact on the fees. So let's say, for example, Sturgeon Falls and Verner is, handled separately than let's say like the living landfill or the field landfill and whatnot. Is there a possibility for the next meeting to, or when we're going to be approving this or reviewing, to have like an impact? So for example, let's say I know like in my area I pay, I think it's just a little over 150 a year, but I don't have any tipping fees when I go to the landfill because it's just added as a special charge on my tax bill. So is it possible to have those kinds of proposed increase based on the budget, just kind of see the impact?
I can sort of give you sort of the verbal one here, but absolutely, Councilor Kershaw, we would bring all the reports back with the rates, but
okay.
For the kind of a household with full curbside, so recycling and curbside solid waste collection, so that Sturgeon urban area. With this proposal, it'll go from 295 to 303. Our outlying areas where garbage is actually still picked up. So like the Verner areas where the Verner is actually the first one. This is just our far outlying area where we actually have garbage pickup. It's going to go from 265 to 273, 272.50. And then the landfill access only goes from 159 to 163.50. And then there are kind of other charges that are about 60% of those for additional units. So if you've got more than one household and that in there, seasonal is 60% of the landfill access only charge. So it's all sort of scaled from those numbers.
Okay. Perfect. Thank you very much. Back to you, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Any questions or comments? So that will be brought back. With the report, unless anybody has any other questions or comments?
The general consensus that we'll bring the rate bylaw back at just adoption of next.
I'm sorry, I did have one more question. I was just. For the increase in man hours for Kipling, there have not been any other requests received in history, like for field or like, does the traffic or the volume at Kipling justify additional man hours? Because just because somebody requests something doesn't mean it's.
I think I've asked Mr. Sullivan to quantify that. I don't know, but I think it's more anecdotal that the Wednesdays for the local residents are fairly busy. And that's in the summertime. I don't have, I think they're getting probably about 40 to 50 vehicles.
I have to come back with those numbers, yeah.
So when are they there right now?
They're there Saturdays. They're open Saturdays, and during the summer months, they're open from June 1st to August 31st on
July and August.
July?
July, just 2 months in the summer, yeah.
So they're asking.
And the enhancement on a salary, you told me, is like
$1,700.
Yeah.
And they want to go to June, July, August, September, or what's the proposed?
They want three more additional months.
May, June.
May, June, and yeah.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to be clear on where we were and what the ask was. Is that the only, I'm sorry, is that the only outside dump that's open 2 days a week?
No, I believe, Jason.
Well, we have the Muskasong that's open 1 day a week. We have Field that's open 2 days a week.
Okay.
They're all kind of varying hours. Sorry?
River Valley's open.
River Valley's open 2 days a week, and then Laving is open 3 days a week in the summer, 2 days a week in the winter, and Verner is open 3 days a week all year long.
Sorry, Councillor Nicole.
That's a good question.
Wrap it all up again.
Other questions or comments? Okay. So if there's general consensus with approving this, please show of hands, please. Thank you. Back to you, Madam Mayor.
Me? Yes. Thank you. 5 to 9, and we're going to move into the regular meeting. See if we can get this all done and let's evening. 6.1 consent agenda.
It is moved by Councillor Restool and seconded by Councillor Tessier. Be resolved that the consent agenda for the council meeting held on March the 5th, 2024 be approved as presented.
Questions or comments on that? All in favor? Carried, thank you. 6.1.2. Oh no, sorry, 6.2. In your package, you'll see just some communication from the Sturgeon Falls Curling Club. So you can mark your calendar with that. That's just for the information for council members. And see it. Do you have that handy or no? I think it is. That's right. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Thank you. Okay, new business. It's okay.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, yeah, hero. So for the information, they are having a sponsor appreciation open house on Sunday, March 24th from 2 to 5 p.m. And as always, I'm sure it'll be a great event at the Curling Club. Thank you. 6.3.1.
It is moved by Councillor Tessier and seconded by Councillor Cruchain. Pursuant to Ontario Regulation 391-21, Blue Box operations have been shifted from municipalities to producers who sell packaging and paper products. And whereas the transition date set for the municipality of West Nipissing is July the 1st, 2025, with full implementation of the producer-operated Blue Box program by December 31st, 2025. And whereas municipalities have an option during the transition period to continue to provide recycling services to residents on behalf of the producers, be it resolved that the West Nipissing municipality has elected to opt out of providing recycling services on behalf of its producers during the transition period.
Questions or comments? None. Okay, all in favor? Carried. Thank you very much. Point 3.2.
It is moved by Councillor Cochain and seconded by Councillor Tessier. Be it resolved that bylaw number 2024-14 being a bylaw to amend Schedule A of bylaw 2012-37 being a bylaw to administer, regulate, and control cemeteries in the West Nipissing municipality shall commence to take effect on the day it is passed.
Thank you very much. In your package, you'll see a memo in regards to the cemetery board meeting, and this is the recommendation fee changes brought forward by them, and then a full schedule of those changes. Any questions on that item? Okay, all those in favor? Carried. Thank you.
It is moved by Councillor Pellet and seconded by Councillor Rivard. Whereas the Centre Communautaire de la Vigne has updated its constitution to dedicate one permanent position on its board of directors to the sitting member of the West Nipissing Municipal Council elected for Ward 8, and whereas the amendment has been effected retroactively to 2005, we therefore resolve that the municipality of West Nipissing is hereby authorized to appoint the member of council elected for Ward 8 in every term to the board of directors for the Centre Communautaire de la Vigne. And be it further resolved that Jérôme Cochain shall be appointed to the Board of Directors for the Centre Communautaire de la Vigne for the council term 2022-26, effective as of the commencement of the 2022-2026 term of council.
Or information is in your packages. Any questions or comments on that?
Yes, Madam Mayor, I'm just wondering, why is it going back to 2022? What's the purpose as opposed to being approved as of now?
Well, because it's just to kind of rectify something that's been the practice where the council for Ward 8 is sat there, and this is a structural governance resolution to formalize it. So it isn't from a go-forward basis. He's always been there.
You mean Councillor Crochet was always there, not a previous councillor?
A previous councillor has always sat on that board.
So the previous councillor from last term sat on that board? Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? Councillor Gagné?
What if happens if the councillor on Ward 8 doesn't want to sit on that board? We're limiting ourselves for it. He just doesn't show up. Just maybe.
I know, I mean, I get that. From a policy perspective, that's a great question.
Yeah.
And, you know, like most boards I know of have a 3 and you're out. If you miss 3 meetings, you're removed. I would imagine at that point, the council of the day would have the option of appointing a different member to sit on that. Would I be correct in that interpretation?
It'd have to be.
Okay, I'm sorry, Councillor Crochet.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So just for clarification purposes, so in the past, it used to be, I guess, Daniel Olivier for a little while had sat through the transition. At that time, Guy Fortis sat on the board in Municipal as well. So it's always been, the Ward 8 member. There's been some instances like over the last few terms. I know Guy was always supportive of the community center. He was always there. Mr. Senecal, I can't comment specifically on that. I know he was involved. There was some times where, he wasn't at the meetings. That's for personal reasons, and that's, a completely different discussion. But I think, moving forward, since even before, I was on council, Councillor Fortier at the time sat and was involved. As that link between the municipality and the board. So through the CCL's constitution, there is also already a clause that provides that if, 3 consecutive meetings without justification are missed, it's considered an automatic, resignation. So there's already processes in place. Knock on wood, I'm attending all the meetings. I know we have a lot of meetings and all that, but, if ever there would be that issue, I, discuss it with the mayor and then bring it back to council if ever there were any issues, but I don't foresee that happening.
Or would you like to follow up?
Go ahead.
Well, I don't want to steal your thunder.
No, it's okay.
It's your same line of questioning. Is there something in the CCL on how that position would be filled if it were to become vacant? So if for whatever reason, the Ward 8 councillor was not able to sit, would they be looking for a different representative from council? So let's say the Ward 7 representative, or maybe whoever might be, if there was another member of council. So we're just kind of, I think, trying to address what would happen in the case of a vacancy, or if the Ward 8 councillor was not able or willing to sit on that board.
So I know that through the Constitution, as it was amended, there isn't any language to kind of, change that. So if for some reason or another, I don't know, or whatnot, it always would go back to the CCL Board of Directors to make that decision, reach out or say, in a different situation. It would also be the CCL Board of Directors' responsibility to bring it back to their members, have it amended at their AGM, and then but it is a good point that can, be added, I'm sure, but it will have to be discussed with the board and the members as an amendment to the Constitution. But as it is written right now, it's just as included in the agenda package. It's strictly for that position. I know, like in the past, there was, transitions, to say the least. But Councillor Danielle Olivier at the time had sat to replace the councillor temporarily. So there's, I'm always sure that things.
Yeah, they're very flexible. This is, should something happen, it could be rectified on an ad hoc basis. This is a formalization of governance in order to protect the councillor from any perceived conflict as well. So this is a recommendation from the IC that we formalize this agreement, which was done more informally. And so on the CCL, they've agreed to formalize it and wholeheartedly, and they welcome council's involvement. This is formalizing it on our end.
Councillor Bonnie?
Yeah, just a follow-up question. So what happens if the council doesn't sit there? Like the position is vacant on the CCL, and any other councillor that would like to take that position, like even temporarily until we replace, nothing happens, or?
Informally, as he indicated, but there would be a request to the CCL board, and they would then vote it. They can, even though the Constitution says something, they can, as a board, waive certain aspects of it and make consideration for it.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Any other questions? Oh, Councillor Rivard?
Sorry, thank you, through you. I'd just like to comment that I don't think, to me, the council for Ward 8 would be sitting on that board, because I think the CCL is pretty involved and very important to that small community. So to me, I think it would kind of rectify itself, to be honest, if the council wouldn't sit there. And, every 4 years, there's a process to rectify that. So I just wanted to point that out there, but I don't think we should be too concerned in regard to that. I think Councillor Corshine as well would represent our council very well, and I don't think we'll have that problem for now.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Rivard. Okay.
I believe in what
Okay, any other questions or comments on that item, please? Okay, all in favor? Carried, thank you.
It is moved by Councillor Rivard and seconded by Councillor Pellerin. Whereas the Nipissing Kennel Club is requesting to use the Marcel and Jane Labbé Arena floor in Sports Hall of Fame free of charge in order to host an all-breed sanctioned dog show from May the 9th to May the 12th, 2024. And whereas council supports the Nipissing Kennel Club's initiative, be it resolved that the use of the Arena Floor and Sports Hall of Fame will be at no charge for the Canadian Kennel Club to host their event, which shall be coordinated with the Community Services Department.
Okay, thank you. Questions or comments on that? Councillor Nicol?
Thank you, through you, Madam Mayor. So the dogs are coming into the building? I,
Dog show, yeah.
okay, and then they are responsible for cleaning that up after?
Correct.
Okay.
Any questions or comments? Councillor St. Louis?
Thank you, through you, Madam Mayor. Personally, and I know I'm gonna sound bad for saying this, but I don't see the difference here because, correct me if I'm wrong, we don't waive the fees for all our minor hockey associations. Correct me if I'm wrong, they pay for their ice time also, and for the use of the Hall of Fame room and everything like that. So I don't understand why we waive money. I know it's something new, I know it's a great event, and I understand all that. But if we don't waive fees for our youth here in our municipality, personally, I don't think it should be a good thing that we waive the fees for this.
Councillor Tiski?
In their form, it says, please find the most recent profit and loss statement for 2019, but it wasn't included in our package.
I think that was an oversight because I saw that too, and I'm looking at it now, and I think we forgot to add an attachment.
My apologies.
So the profit and loss statement of this event here that they've provided, expenses total 31,850, and their revenue is anticipated to be around 35,150. So they're looking at probably a net profit of roughly 4,000.
Councillor Resto?
Through you, Madam Mayor. Just wondering, I have a dog, but I'm not familiar with this group. Is this a group that's based in the municipality, and how long have they been? And leaning on you for your historical knowledge, have we done this in the past?
The Nipissing Kennel Club, they're not based in West Nipissing. We do have a resident of West Nipissing that is involved with this organization, and he's been championing bringing their event here in West Nipissing. It does attract and draw, I guess, dog owners and dog lovers from all over the place. So he's been advocating to host it here. I know they've been in existence for quite some time. They do. I don't know that much about the organization, but looking at they sometimes will do training sessions for dog owners, and they're advocates of obviously anything in support of dogs. So we do have a local resident, but they are not based here, Councillor.
Thank you. Councillor Rivard?
Thank you, through you. I was just wondering as well, like, do we charge the same hourly rate as we do during the winter for the summer? Or is it a much lower? Because I imagine the costs for recovery would be much lower at that point.
So it is a separate rate. We do have a rate to rent the arena floor when it's off season, when it's not a hockey. So that for their event and the amount of time they're looking to have the arena floor dedicated to their event is the 2,300 you're seeing here. So it's not an hourly rate that we would have when we have ice when the ice plant is running and we've got staff resurfacing every hour. So that's the rate that we've got currently in our fees.
I'll just ask a question. The arena fee that you have at 2,300 includes the use of the Sports Hall of Fame as well. Like on a general basis, if we were charging full price for it, that 2,300 would cover both the arena and the Sports Hall of Fame?
Generally, when associations or groups host tournaments, we do include the use of the Hall of Fame at no additional cost. In this instance, I believe that they do not require the use of the Hall of Fame room.
It does say,
Oh, sorry, no, initially their event wanted access to the Marcel Noel Hall, sorry, and they retracted that. So, yeah, generally when events are being hosted, the Hall of Fame room is included.
okay, so they are not asking for the Marcel Noel.
No,
Hall,
they were originally in there.
for the Sports Hall of Fame and the
Correct.
arena.
Correct.
And council would have options here of waiving the entire fee, waiving, say, 50% of the fee, or not approving the waiver at all. Like it's not black or white.
No.
There's a gray option as well. Other questions or comments on that? Councilor Restal?
And through you, Madam Mayor, I'm not trying to push us to 9:30, honestly. Just wanted to ask, our Director of Community Services, does this fall within the scope of what we have for waiving policy, waiving costs?
So again, last meeting, council had in front of them a request for a waiver fee from Conseil Scolaire Catholique Franco-Nord. I did provide council with a copy and I alluded to the fact the criteria are in there. Like the last request council received, I don't recall that it did meet all the criteria, nor does this one. Normally, when a full fee or full waiver of fee is granted, it's for organizations that contribute the proceeds of the event back into the community for a cause, or that will benefit in some way, somehow, the residents of our community through charitable work or through programs that benefit our residents. So that's a brief overview of what our criteria is, yeah.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, if everybody's ready, I will call it to a vote. Resolution's been read, so all those in favor of a fee waiver for the Kennel Club, I'd like to see a show of hands, please. Okay, that is defeated. Thank you.
It is moved by Councillor Paladin and seconded by Councillor Gagne. Whereas the Sturgeon Falls Rod and Gun Club is requesting to use the Cache Bay Community Centre free of charge in order to host a presentation ceremony for a Northern Pike Fishing Tournament on May the 25th, 2024. And whereas Council supports the Sturgeon Falls Rod and Gun Club initiative, be it resolved that the use of the Cache Bay Community Centre will be at no charge for the Sturgeon Falls Rod and Gun Club to host their event, which shall be coordinated with the Community Services Department.
Any questions or comments on this request? Seeing none, all those in favor? Carried. Thank you. Okay, I'm done. We do have an addendum for this evening, and I don't know where to find it. So we're moving on to 6.3, again, still under new business. The addendum includes two items, the first of which is?
It is moved by Councillor Paladin and seconded by Councillor Rivard. Whereas a request for quotation was made for structural repairs to bridges and large diameter culverts, and whereas 6 quotations were received, and whereas the quotations were reviewed by the director, and the awards being recommended herein consist of the best prices meeting all specifications, and whereas council concurs with the recommendations received, be it resolved that the following award for structural repairs be awarded as follows. A to Z Civil, Leclerc Road, $60,000. A to Z Civil, North-South Road, $75,000. And Edson Gaines, Sun's Trucking and Paving, Levac Road, $244,990.
Okay, so this is the first of 2 resolutions that we're going to have that involve public works. And you'll see in the memorandum, I guess we've already awarded the LaBrosse Savignac. Is that right? Because you have, sorry, like the table includes things that we're not approving, correct?
Those are goes to council. Yes.
Okay. I'm like, they're not included. Okay, so that makes more sense. Does anybody have questions or comments on these items? Okay. I'll ask a question. These prices are all over the place.
Yeah.
It must be really interesting trying to budget. Like, it's so confusing to see 1 at 2.5 times, 1 at half, one at 10%, one at 200%, and we won't even get to Eugene, which is, I mean, awesomely good. But, you know, and then North-South Road, I'm very confused on North-South Road because the budgeted amount on that is $7,000 and the tender on it is 10, more than 10 times that price. So is there, I'm not meaning to put you on the spot, Ms. Henry, but, you know, like, give us some insight into these unusual numbers.
So to start with North-South Road, I was prepared for this question. Our initial budget was done prior to receiving the 2023 OSIM inspection report. So once we received the 2023 inspection report for that structure, there were additional things that were required for that bridge. So the work is quite a bit more than we initially anticipated for that structure, which is why the cost is so much greater than the budget. In terms of these prices coming in all over the map, I would say there's probably some of it has to do with local contractors versus non-local contractors would be part of it. And for the structural repairs, when we're posting, it's not as specific as like the bridge replacement for the Eugene Bridge. We're just posting a kind of a list of repairs that we want done. So it is possible that, you know, some people are kind of giving us the Cadillac and
Just Hyundai.
right? So, but I was quite surprised by this variance, and I don't know if that's
Well, thank
early
you for
award
the
or
explanation
yeah.
North South, because that was the one where I'm really like,
Mhm.
I don't understand, like, it doesn't compute. So
Yeah, it's a lot.
Any other questions? Councillor Pellerin?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just the bridge on North-South, are we talking about the little wood bridge or on the river?
The Little Wood Bridge. So it's the one because we did a bunch of repairs to the other North-South Bridge last year, I believe. So this one is located 3 kilometers south of Highway 17. So it's the next. If you're coming from Old Highway 17, it would be the second bridge that you go across.
My next question for the Eugene Bridge.
Sorry, Councillor Pellerin, that's the next item on the agenda.
Oh,
Okay, so just if you can hold the question on that until we get to the next resolution, that would be perfect.
thank you.
Okay, perfect, thank you. Councillor Tessier?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Through you, is there only one bridge on Levac?
For the structural culvert replacement.
I'm just not sure where
Oh, where on
Levac Road.
So on that section of Black Road, so this one is located, so about 0.6 kilometers west of Arcan Road. So that's the first, if you're traveling west, it's the first structure that you come to. And then there's another one shortly after that, but it'll be the first one.
Yeah, because I remember the one, there's a big creek, or
Okay.
that's not the one, so it's
Yeah,
one.
this one is the water. I have the waterway. It's not the one over yeah, I think it's the little Cache Creek is the waterway that it's over.
Cache Creek.
Yeah, but it's the first structure that you come to if you're traveling west on Levac Road. There's 2 fairly close to each other. And this one is a large diameter culvert.
Okay, okay, I think that's the one I'm thinking about. Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, resolution's been read. All in favor? Carried. Thank you.
It is moved by Councillor Pellerin and seconded by Councillor Gagné. Whereas the tender for the Eugene Road Bridge repair was opened by the Director of Infrastructure and the Director of Corporate Services. And whereas one submission was received, Be it resolved that the tender for the Eugene Road Bridge repair in the municipality of West Nipissing be awarded to Ed Segay and Sons Trucking with a sum of $649,412.55. That's HST.
Okay. Questions or comments on that? Councillor Pellerin?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm just wondering, was the design for the bridge changed from the tenders from last year?
Yes,
Yes, they were.
yes.
Okay. Is there a difference in the design from the weights to the bridge can take?
No, no, like it'll still, we know that it's a farming community and the designer was aware of that. So yeah, for what the farm equipment and whatnot that is going to be going over the bridge, it will accommodate that.
I'm just curious also, like for 2 million to 600,000, is there a difference too in the expectancy of the life of the bridge?
No,
No. So,
it's just a simpler design. I'd say maybe the first one was a bit of an over design for what's required in that area. So this one, there's less in-water work. A huge portion of the cost was the in-water work. And so this one has less in-water work. It's got simpler abutments and it's more of a modular structure that's kind of built and put down versus something that's completely constructed in place.
no, it's good, but I'm just wondering why the engineers didn't go that route first. Just to-
Yeah. Well, that's always.
Okay. Excuse me, Chairman. We'll have sidebar conversations.
Thank you.
Sorry. Other questions or comments on that? Thank you for including the report from the firm that reviewed the, I think that's helpful. Even a learning exercise for us to understand the types of information that goes into the bids and how they're evaluated. I do just want to make a note, Madam Clerk did read the resolution in. However, it did read, and whereas one submission was received, it is actually 6 submissions. I don't know if Councillor Resto, do we need to officially amend that, Madam Clerk?
We can do that.
Okay, so if Councillor Resto would like to make a motion to amend the resolution, to read 6 instead of 1, and I'll take a seconder. Councillor Tessier, all in favor of the amendment? Thank you. Any other questions before we put the resolution to the vote? Thank you. All in favor? Carried. And we are nearing the very end of our meeting. We obviously had a lot of stuff to go through tonight, and I don't think any of you have time to hear what I have to say. So I think I'll pass on a mayor's report for this evening. But we will be back here in 2 weeks. Except I will say that I'm very happy to be attending the MT 50th anniversary supper tomorrow night. And I'd like to congratulate that organization for their length of service in the community. And I look forward to seeing everybody there. I'm sure I'll see a couple of our other members. And with that,
It is moved by Councillor Pellerin and seconded by Councillor Navarre. Be it resolved that bylaw number 2024-15, being a bylaw of the municipality of West Nipissing to confirm the proceedings of council at its meeting held on March the 5th, 2024, come into force and take effect on the date is passed.
all those in favor? Carried.
It is moved by Councillor Gagne and seconded by Councillor Pellerin. Be it resolved that the meeting of council held on March the 5th, 2024, be adjourned.
Okay, all those in favor? Thank you. Thank you, staff, for the marathon this evening. I know you're not